Hello and welcome back to Chapter 1, Lesson 3. We're going to talk about what is HTML and we're going to create our first HTML document and see that document being rendered in the actual browser. So I hope you're ready to write some code because now is the time that we're going to start writing code. Okay, so what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, an acronym for that. Now, the last two letters I want to talk about first, markup language. So HTML itself is not a programming language. Let's just get that up in the air right now. So a lot of people, when they say what programming languages do you know on resumes and things like that, they'll list HTML and CSS as programming languages. However, even though you use code to write HTML, it's not a programming language, it is a markup language. And the difference between the two is that a markup language is generally used for some sort of styling, not necessarily styling, but the way that it's presented. It is a markup, so you're gonna put some sort of syntax down. Like, let's say I put a specific syntax down, and that means that I'm going to render a table to the screen. Okay, so a table will get rendered to the screen because I used a certain syntax. That's markup. Okay, there's there's also markdown language. But we'll stick with this. This is markup language, okay? It's not a programming language. We're going to learn some programming languages later. A programming language allows you to make decisions. You can do things like if and else and if else. You can do loops and you can do logic, okay? Programming languages allow you to solve problems with logic. Markup languages allow you to display something generally, okay? That's generally what they are. So what is the hypertext part of the HTML? Well, hypertext is basically referencing when HTML was first invented, it was invented to display scientific research papers so that science research, like in colleges and things like that, could write a research paper and then they could cite other research papers by highlighting part of the text. And when you clicked on that, it would actually open the referenced document so that you can view that as well. Okay, and that is hypertext. Hypertext is basically a link, what we would think of as a link. It is text that can be linked to something else. Okay, so hypertext markup language. Originally invented, I believe, for scientific papers and things like that, or documents, and now it is the backbone or the building block or the markup language of the web. Okay, so we use it for websites. And so let's get started in doing that. So it's important to note that that an HTML document is nothing more than a text document. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch over to my screen here. Okay, and I have my terminal open because I think it's important for us to learn terminal as we go, to not be scared of terminal. You don't have to use terminal in this, but what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to type cd and enter, and that takes me to my directory. Here you'll see a tilde, that means I'm in my home directory. And in fact, I can type pwd in here, and you can see the actual structure that where I'm located, that is print working directory. That's what pwd is short for. And this is going to show me that I'm in /, which is root, home, /Curtis, which is the name of my home directory on my computer. Okay, so I am in my home directory on my computer, but I want to go to the desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and use the change directory command, or cd, and I'm going to cd to downloads. And that would take me to the downloads directory. But I could cd, I'm going to hit back or // and that'll take me back. So if I do print working directory again, I'm back to my home. So // is how you go back or up one directory. Okay, so now I'm actually going to go to my desktop. So I'm going to do cd desktop, and now I'm actually on my desktop. And if I do print working directory, you can see that I'm at home, Curtis, desktop. So I'm on my desktop. I'm going to use a command here to create a folder or a directory on my desktop. And let's just call this directory HTML. Okay, so I'm going to use mkdir, which is make directory, and I'm just going to call this HTML, and I'll hit enter. You can see that right there, that HTML folder or directory popped up on my desktop because I created it on my desktop. And if I want to see what's on my desktop, I can click ls, which is list, and you can see that this blue right here is a directory called HTML. I'm going to go into the HTML directory now, and you can see if I print working directory that I'm inside of there. And I'm going to use another command to create my first file there. And that file, to create a file, you just use the word touch. I don't know why it's touch, but you use touch, and that will create a file. Now we just need to give it a name. Well, the default name for an HTML file, the starting point for most web applications, is something called index.html. Now, let's look at this name real quick. Index is typically used for a table of contents, okay? So you can imagine a research paper would have used this, and it would have like a table of contents on the front, and then you could click on the different chapters or different parts in there to take you to that part in a document. Well, this could be considered like your home screen, and when you go here, there's going to be other links that take you to different pages on your website. Okay, possibly. We can do a lot of different things, but that is what the index is short for. So most web servers are looking for this by default if you visit the website, index.html. Now the .html is an extension because remember this is just a text file. This could be .txt for text, okay? But the extension here is HTML. Now this is how the server is going to know that this is an HTML type document, okay? So you're going to name it index because it's a default file, and we're going to tell the server this is an HTML file by giving it the extension .html. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and if I do ls now, you can see that I have an index.html. And again, if I go here on my desktop and I open it up, you can see that I do have an index.html inside of there. Okay, so that file right now is empty. So let's go ahead and open our text editor. Remember back in the setup video, I told you to install VS Code or Atom. I'm going to be using VS Codium, I think, for now. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And it starts out just opening up my home or the welcome screen because I don't have anything open here. And I can create a new file from here or open a folder or whatever. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on open folder here. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to my desktop and I'm going to open this HTML folder. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and close this welcome tab. And if you look over here, I have these different tabs. And the top tab here is the Explorer. And if I open the Explorer, I can see that I'm in this directory here, this HTML directory. And there's a file in here called index.html. And if I open that up, this file is completely empty. Now, I think it's just important to stop just for a second and tell you that it's very important that you're using a text editor like this and not something like Microsoft Word or something else that you might think would be a good idea to generate code. And that's because Microsoft Word has its own formatting to do things like, you know, make something bold or whatever. So it actually, if you type in, let's just say, if I type inside this file and I type hello world, okay, this hello world would actually have other information around it if I created this with Microsoft Word. So this text editor, along with doing a lot of other really cool stuff that helps us, it will keep this code that we write in here exactly clean, and it'll only have what we put in here, okay? That was some line endings. So right now we just have hello world. I'll go ahead and save that. And let's find out what happens now. I'm going to go ahead and go to my browser. And I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put on one half of my screen, I'm going to go ahead and put my text editor over here. And I'm going to put on the right side of the screen here, I'm going to put the browser. Let's just kind of see what we got going on here. And I can actually open this file here. You can actually open this file up with Chrome. So I'm actually going to click on this open containing folder, and that opens up my Explorer here. And I'm actually going to click in here. I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to say open with Google Chrome. Okay. So now you can see up here in the URL bar, it says that it's opened a file, and it's opened the file, and it's got a path on my computer to this HTML file. And you see that it prints that hello world right here in the browser. Now I haven't typed any code, I just simply typed this hello world text. Let me make my font size just a little bit bigger here, just in case you guys are having a hard time seeing. I do recommend that you watch these videos on full screen and with the 1080p or high definition so that you can see the text really well. And I'll do my best to keep the font size big as I can so that you guys can see what I'm typing. But you can see that we already have something in the browser rendering, and in the browser is just kind of smart enough to know, hey, this text, they just want to print this to the screen. But let's do something a little bit cooler than that. Let's get rid of that and let's talk a little bit about the HTML structure, okay? Now this structure, generally speaking, I'm going to show you one thing that's easy here. And I'm going to do less than sign, and then an H1, and then a greater than sign. And my text editor automatically completed the closing tag, which we'll talk about in a second. But I'm going to do that, and my editor is just going to keep. But basically, you type the less than sign, then again, and then a forward slash, and then the H1, and then the greater than sign. This right here is what is known as an HTML tag. It is an opening, so this side of the tag right here, this H1, that is considered the opening tag. And this one right here is the closing tag. Now anything that I put inside of this tag is going to be this is the markup part of the language. It's going to do something unique with that. So let me just type something here and put this. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll just do the traditional hello world, just so we can kind of see. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go over here to the browser and refresh. And now you see it looks different than the other hello world. It's larger, it's bold, okay? And so that markup, this H1, is what told us that this is a headline. Now, there are 6 of these, and I can do an H2, and I can say hello world, okay? I can do an H3. And you know what? Maybe we'll just even tell it that it's an H3 in here and an H2, just so we can easily see the difference on the screen. So you can see there's an opening tag and a closing tag. We'll do an H4, and actually I typed H3 here. This is supposed to be H4. And we're going to go on down the line until we get to H6. And that will show you all of the headline tags that are built in, or header tags, headline tags that are built in to HTML that we can use. And all of these by default, now you can change the style of these, but all of these by default are what's known as block level elements, and we're gonna get to that in a little while. I don't want to confuse you too much right off the bat, but you'll notice they have similar styling out of the gate. Let me save this and refresh, and you can see that these starting with the top H1 tag and going on down, they get smaller, the font size gets smaller, but they're all bold, and they all have an amount of space that's built in underneath them. So these aren't all crammed up against one another. There's space on the top and the bottom of these, okay? And H6 is about the smallest. Now I'm going to be honest with you, I very rarely use an H6 in real life. It's been very, very rare, but just know that it's there and you will use it at some point for something. But also semantically, when you use an H1, you're telling the browser or whatever's reading the browser, like a screen reader or something, that this is more important or a higher level in the hierarchy than the H2. Okay, so if I have this headline, this might be the headline for the entire, or the title for the entire, like say if we were writing like a newspaper article or something, or some sort of article, this would be like the page title. And then this H2 might be the article title. Okay, and then you might have subtitles within the article that might be H3s. Okay, so that's kind of how you would use those. But this is the uh, the basic structure of how HTML works. You have an opening tag and a closing tag, and you have something in between there. And this opening and closing tag is the markup part of the language, H1. Okay, it does something unique. So let me get rid of all of that, because what I want to actually show you is the full structure of what you should be doing in a layout. Okay, so uh, a document would actually be structured in such a way that it has a little bit more information than just the H1. Now the browser is smart enough to kind of know that what you're trying to do, so it fills in a lot of the blanks. But we want to make sure that we are giving the browser every bit of information that it needs. And so what we end up doing is we create a doc type HTML tag at the top of the page. So this is just tells it like, hey, this isn't the document type here, and specifically this is going to be an HTML version 5, which version 5 has been in use, I think, since 2014, and it was introduced in 2008, I believe. But since 2012 or 2014, somewhere around there, we've been using HTML5 as our version of HTML. So this doc type used to be a little bit more complicated, but in HTML5 they really simplified this. So what this line does is it basically tells the browser, hey, this is an HTML5 document type. The next thing that we're going to have in our document is an opening and closing tag, actually, for the HTML. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter there. And as we do that, typically what we do is things that are inside of these tags, we indent these. Now I have mine set up to be 2 spaces. Yours may default be set up to 4 spaces. Either are fine. I prefer 2 spaces, but if I had this at 4 spaces, the 4 spaces may make it a little bit easier for you to read. It would end up being indented that much. But again, I like 2 spaces, so I'm going to go ahead and use 2 spaces on my document. So inside the HTML tags, and I'm going to give it a little more space. By the way, the blank spaces and even the new lines, they don't really do anything in HTML. This is just more to make it easy for us to read as developers. Okay, so this next thing that we're going to put here is inside the HTML tag directly, we have a few more tags. We have what's called a head tag, okay? And then I'm going to go down a little bit further, and then we have the body tag. Okay, so the head tag would not render anything to the screen. The head tag gives the browser more information. We might be doing something as far as like telling it the title of the page here, or we might be telling it where to get our style sheets, which we're going to talk about in the next lesson. What are style sheets? How do we get styles? How do we restyle? Like, say I wanted to make all these H1s and H2s green or red or some different color besides black. We might put that information in the head. So the head is a separate part of the document that we give the browser more information about how to render the document. And what it renders to the document is what is inside the body tag. Okay, so what we would actually have done is we would put our H1 right here in the body tag. So here we would say HTML rules, so we have this HTML rules here, and if I save this now and refresh, you're going to see all we have on the screen is HTML rules. We don't have any of this other stuff printing to the page, so it doesn't look like we've done much here. But let me show you one more thing that we can do here in the head that's kind of cool. So before I do it though, notice up here in the tab that it says index.html. That's not very descriptive. So what I could do is inside the head tag, I can give it another tag called title. And we're just going to call this HTML. I'll save that and refresh. And so this could be anything we want. We could have called this, HTML is awesome. Okay. And if I refresh that, it says HTML is awesome. So that's how the page title. Now the page title does more than just name these tabs up here. The browsers are actually looking at this title and plugging that into those by default. So that is one thing you can do in the head. And there's many more things we can do. I don't want to get too crazy in this video. I just want you to really understand the structure of how an HTML file is laid out and how it works. Okay, so we have the document, the first line here. We always put this doc type HTML to tell the browser like this is indeed rendered as an HTML file. And then we tell it like, hey, here is all inside the HTML tags. We're going to tell it this is all the HTML. Okay, and then we have two sections inside of the HTML. We have a head and a body, and the head gives it any information it needs or additional information it might need to render the body the way we intend. Let me show you one more thing we could do in the head here. And we're not going to get into this too much, but I could do style here, a style tag. And inside the style tag, I could say, I want all of my H1s to be the color of red. Okay? And now if I refresh the page, my H1 elements are red. Okay? You don't need to know any of this. You don't have to memorize any of this. I'm just getting the point across of these opening and closing tags here. And if you get that in your head, we can learn the rest of it as we go, okay? I'm going to teach you a lot of these tags, and we're going to see some more examples, and we're going to create some pages in our HTML lesson here, but you're not going to learn every single tag or everything about it. I just want to show you how it works. You have an opening tag, and then the closing tag is the same as the opening, except for it begins with a /. Okay, so if you notice that pattern here, this H1 pattern with this closing H1 pattern, and then anything that's inside of that is marked up, or the browser will render that in a certain way based upon what those tags are. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. In the next video, we are going to dive deeper into HTML, and let me look at my syllabus here. Yeah, specifically in the next one, I think what we're going to talk about is we're just going to do a few more examples of headlines and paragraphs. Okay, so some more text in the next video. So I will see you then. I hope you guys are having fun, and make sure I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but make sure you guys are opening your editors and typing along. Go ahead and maybe if you have two screens, put the video on one screen and pause it as you need, and you'll learn this a lot better if you actually type along with me. Okay, so go ahead and do this. Pause the video here and do everything that I did in this video, and make sure that you get this on the screen in your browser. Okay, so I hope you guys are having fun. I hope this makes sense, and don't worry about memorizing any of this right now. Just memorize the layout, the structure, how we open a tag and close a tag, and we're going to get real used to doing that. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video.